Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Back for another round of chat about all things Tottenham Hotspur. I'm hoping this video comes out okay. I don't know, it may already look slightly different to you, and that's because it's my biennial upgrading of my phone. So I've got a new phone, which could go either way. It could improve the quality of the video itself. Not me, it's not going to include the quality of me, but it might increase the quality of the, I guess, the sharpness of the video. It could reduce it. I have no real idea yet. We'll find out. I'm trying it on a slightly higher setting, which could be disastrous for YouTube. It could take me 5 hours to upload, or it could work quite well. I think it's going to certainly take a bit longer. So there is far more chance of something happening in the meantime between me recording this and then uploading it, which is always a scary prospect when you're talking about transfers and things like that as well. But I did notice that the way I was having to record it on my old phone was very much a standard definition recording of it. So we're going to give it a go. We'll see if it works. I already look a bit strange. I can see my eyes looking incredibly kind of weird, alien, light bluey kind of look, but we'll see. We'll see how it comes out. It may be that all of this means nothing because I couldn't get it to upload, so I had to convert it to a lesser format quality anyway. So you'll be thinking, what are you talking about? It's as blurry as anything anyway, which might not be the worst thing, to be honest. Me in crystal clear, fuller HD or whatever they call it, it might not be the best thing for anyone watching on a large screen. People do watch it on their TVs. I was surprised at that. YouTube stats tell me, I think it's something like 17-18% of people watch it on their television screens. There you go. I did not know that until I looked at that as well. We're doing all right on the old kind of views and things like that. I think we're above 13 million views now, which is very cool. That's very much appreciated. We're heading towards the 60,000 subscribers, which is very cool. Again, for someone that never bothers to say, watch this, like this, whatever, all of that sort of stuff, I'm quite pleased with that. I'll take that. I will take that. And the movie channel's doing quite well as well, starting up on its own little thing. Golden Guest goes to the movies. But I digress. We're not here to talk about movies. We're not here to talk about views, likes, whatever. We are here to talk about Tottenham Hotspur. And yeah, another kind of interesting week, let's put it that way, in the life of Tottenham Hotspur. We had a new kit today. We should start probably with that. It's a stripy affair. You've probably seen it doing the rounds on social media in the last 3-4 months or so as an actual photo. Maybe not that long actually. I think these actually as a photo form came out slightly later, but we've certainly seen the concept of what it was going to look like for a while. It's how do I describe this? I can't decide whether I like it or whether I think it looks like wallpaper from the 1980s or some stripy pajamas. Somewhere in the middle, perhaps. It's going to be one of those where I think a lot of people are going to dislike it, but also there's going to be a few that will probably rank it up there as their most favourite kits of recent times. I have liked light blue ones before. I liked the retro one, the third kit from a few years back. But yeah, this one's a bit different. They put it out with very much a retro 80s themed little kind of campaign video, which had Pat Matassar, Mickey van der Ven, Radu Dragusin, Martha Thomas, Celine Bizet, Olga Artinen, sorry about the pronunciation, and Pedro Porro. Yes, they say it was the club. It's a pattern that's synonymous with away kits of the 1980s. So there you go. 80s. Well, it won some silverware in the 80s. That's something. If it could be kind of inspired by that, that would be great. It's got this funny kind of, they've put the cockerel badge in the centre of the shirt, yet the Nike swoosh, I'm trying to get out of the habit of saying it as I used to always say it as a kid, Nike swoosh is off to the side. I kind of feel like if you're going central, go all in. And they didn't. They've kind of, it's a bit kind of piecemeal, but and it's got kind of, I quite like the yellow and white kind of taping around the sleeves and stuff. But yeah, it's all right. As kids go, it's not horrendous. As always, they always look slightly better when they're on an actual play and you can see how they're going to look. What is horrendous is the price. I'm not going to go into a rant about it again because I did that in the last time. Same price for the away top as it was for the home top. £125 for the elite version, which is to replicate what the players wear, and that's men's and women's, and only £85 for the stadium top, which is the ones that us mere mortals and fans would just wear and have a slightly different fit, I guess. Probably material, I don't know. It's just obscene. It's an obscene amount of money. And as we've said previously, Spurs set to announce, it looks like BetMGM as the training wear sponsor, and are looking to announce a new shirt sleeve sponsor. That's the plan anyway, before the season starts. The training wear and the shirt sleeve sponsor will not be included on any of the kit you can buy in the shops. So, as I think I said in the last video, I'm intrigued to know whether that takes a chunk out of the value of selling those to people as well, whether that makes a difference. But who knows? Who knows? So yeah, new kit out today. Third kit, they say, will be communicated in due course when that's coming out. I think the initial bits and pieces we've seen of that looks to be a green effort with the Nike swoosh on its end, which is apparently going on all the third shirts that Nike produced this year for various clubs. So, yeah, keep an eye on that. Keep an eye out on the next £125 thing you want to spend your money on. That is just mad. That's mad. Just £250 for two tops if you want them. £375 if you want the set. What a bargain. Why would you want to go on holiday when you can buy 3 shirts? Stop myself going into a rant. Must stop ranting about modern football. We're going to talk about strikers. That's going to be the main thrust of this. I've been doing a fair bit of digging today. Did a little piece on all of this, but I'm also going to talk about it in video form. So we know Spurs want to sign a new striker this summer. Asked Postecoglou, didn't I, in Melbourne last month, you want attackers, don't you? Don't you, kind of thing. Essentially prodded him into it. And he admitted, yes, they do. And look, they've needed another one since Harry Kane left. Let's be honest. They kind of make to do. Is that even a way of saying it? Make to do? That's horrendous English. They got by, is probably the better way of saying it, with Richarlison and Toney last season. But obviously Richarlison's injury absences and Toney, of course, also being away at the Asian Cup meant that was a little bit stretched, and they didn't have enough options, let's be honest. They didn't. So they're looking to address that this summer. And people keep saying, and they've got the 100 million from the Harry Kane transfer. I don't know whether that technically works or not. I suppose it does to a degree. Although, what did they spend? I totaled it up, didn't I? I can't remember what it was now. I mean, 40-something on Van der Ven, 40 on Maddison, 40-something on Johnson. And then you had all the kind of smaller ones, didn't you? Like Valise, Vicario. God, it feels so long ago, doesn't it? And I feel like it's someone really obvious. Of course, you've had Dragic since as well. Probably not going to count Werner because they're loan deals. Oh, Porro and Kulusevski were made permanent. Oh, there's a fly in here. That is absolutely going to get in the way at some point during the video. How has that got in? I thought I had blocked every entrance and exit from the room. So anyway, a fair chunk spent. So I understand when people kind of come out with, they had the £100 from Harry Kane sitting in their pockets burning a hole. It depends, I guess, what their budget was originally last summer. And whether they were spending with that potentially in mind, I don't know. Yeah, it's a fair point, maybe, if you look at it from that angle, perhaps. But they did spend a fair old whack in the end when you total summer and January up. I don't know. I never really thought about that until I saw it again today, and it kind of crossed my mind, like, is the £100 million still there, or has it been spent? Again, you can look at this anyway. You can look at it as this huge cash-generating stadium they have. Should they be, generating more money anyway? That's the other aspect of looking at it. More concerts and things like that can go towards all of this. Anyway, back to the point. I digress. So what Postecoglou said to me last month, in case you missed it, when I asked about him wanting to sign new attackers, he said, yeah, absolutely, it's no secret. You saw the way we finished the season. Obviously, we lost Richie and Timo. Of course, Richarlison missed the end of the season as well, didn't he? With injuries, but we're fairly light in that area. We started last year with Mano and Perisic, and we're quite healthy in that front third in terms of numbers. But as the year went on, it became pretty evident we need to bulk up. We're in Europe as well next year, so we'll have more games, and it's definitely an area of the park we'll need to strengthen. So you can see there he's talking about strikers and wingers, but essentially he kind of sees it all as one. But definitely, I know they're looking for a striker of sorts. They've got a short list they've put together. It will be Johan Langer, the technical director, Rob McKenzie. We've spoken about this before, putting together a short list of players that, using data, using various kind of forms of analysis, and also speaking with that man, Ange Postecoglou, to get exactly the right player, I guess, to fit his system, to fit into that system. So that shortlist will have, I'm guessing here, will have, you'd imagine you will get it down to probably a top 3 to 5 names on there, of varying degrees of availability, I suppose, as well. That's another thing to take into account. You can want a player as much as you want, but they may just not be available. So one of the names I know certainly is on the list is Lille's Jonathan David. He is on that shortlist. He is a player that the club have followed for quite a while, to be fair. Kind of his name has come up in the last couple of summers. If you're not aware who he is, he's a Brooklyn-born 24-year-old striker, but a Canada international. He's currently playing at the Copa America, played against Christian Romero in Argentina on Friday night. Last season for Lille, he got 26 goals in 47 games. No shabby effort at all. And actually, he also scored 26 goals the previous season as well. I think the one before that was 19. So he is a regular high-scoring player in that league. And he is a player of, I'd say, serious interest to Spurs because he's made that shortlist. His contract runs out in 2025, which means he could be, than previous summers when they've looked at him, he'll probably be a better, lower price tag. Some of the talk seems to be around the £25 million mark as well. But obviously he's at the Copa America right now, so you would imagine things aren't probably going to kind of smash into the action on that straight away. It may do. It may. Someone kind of, every time, like I did some stuff about Eberechi Eze the other day, and people would say, just get it done. And you kind of think, but he's at the Euros. And I was trying to rack my brains, and please help me with this in case I've missed anyone. Is there anyone at the Euros or Copa America that while the competition is underway and they are playing games, has anyone moved yet? Please let me know. And genuinely, I don't know. So I didn't want to say like, oh, it's impossible. No one moves during a tournament if it's happened, because we'll look like an absolute muppet. It may happen, but do let me know. But I would imagine the phrase I would say was highly unlikely, because essentially they're in a zone, aren't they? I think stuff can be progressed behind the scenes between clubs and agents, representatives, whatever you want to call them. But when it comes down to the actual player and finalising a move and actually making it public that it's done as well is another thing. Sometimes, maybe quite a few times, things are agreed and pretty much officially confirmed behind the scenes, but they can't come out with it publicly for a number of reasons. And I'm not saying that's happened. It may happen. I don't know. But I'm not saying that's happened with anyone that I'm aware of. But I'm just saying the Euros and Copa America get in the way. So, yeah, Jonathan David is there. Like I say, he was up against Christian Romero. I used a photo of my story earlier, actually, of the two of them battling. Obviously, Romero and Argentina got the upper hand. They won, I think it was 2-0 on Friday night. And the other names on this shortlist will come out. They'll emerge in the next few days. I have no doubt there'll be a couple more that come out. I've kind of been chasing around today trying to see who's on it, who's not on it. So I kind of got the confirmation that Jonathan David was one of them on it. And as always, when you're looking at transfers, it's kind of, it's easier to kind of get people ruled out by various sides of the deal, because you know how I work. As I've always said, it's always kind of a two-source thing. So one that was on it previously in the process that they've certainly looked at, who does not appear to have made the final shortlist, is Santiago Gimenez, the final striker, who's had a very good season for them as well. He's been linked with the club loads, scored 23 goals in the Eredivisie last season, 23-year-old Mexican, and he was actually spotted at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier in the season. That apparently he was there as a guest of an agent rather than invited by the club or anything like that. So from what I understand, he's not on this short list of the ones they're looking at. Another player that certainly the club, it feels like the club have distanced themselves, or certainly people within the club have distanced themselves from, in the last week or so, and you've probably seen other journalists, this is not kind of just me, other journalists have said this one as well. Ivan Toney at Brentford feels like Spurs have kind of stepped away from that situation, certainly at this stage in the window. I'm intrigued to see where he goes, and whether kind of all of the buzz about he was definitely going here or there and he was going to be this big fee, what actually ends up happening with him. Because it was kind of nailed on it was going to Arsenal. They seem to have kind of stepped away from that, certainly from reports that's going on. And whether towards the end of the window his price comes down or not. Be an interesting one. He's obviously not really getting the time at the Euros. Certainly from a Spurs perspective, people seem to have been distancing themselves from him or the club from him and making a potential move. He had a funny season, didn't he? Obviously, we know what happened in his band. His ban, and then he came back, had his little flurry where it was like, oh, he's back. And then it kind of dropped off a bit, and he didn't really hit the ground running, I think, as a lot of people maybe expected in the remainder of the season. So I don't know what will happen with him. But so that's Ivan Toney. We've also Bologna's Joshua Zirkzee, who has been linked a couple of times, mainly been linked elsewhere. I think Chelsea have been quite strongly linked with him, and there's someone else, might be Man U. But from what I understand, he's not one that Spurs are considering at this point. Again, probably not in that high scoring range. I think he had, unless I'm mixing him up with another. I've looked at so many strikers today and been asking around so many different people involved in every possible capacity in the transfer market you can imagine, like around players, around clubs, everything. I think he only got 8 goals this season. I'm trying to remember. I should have written that down. Another one, he's technically not really a central striker, he's more of a winger. Federico Chiesa. I like him. I think he's a good player, and kind of bits and pieces I've seen of him, he's always kind of impressed me. But from what I understand, not thought to be a potential transfer target for Spurs, certainly at this point in the summer. That's kind of some that we know. Probably the biggest one out of that, maybe 2, are Gimenez and Toney. That kind of at the start of the window we thought I think with Toney there was always a kind of an idea that there'd be so much competition for him, Spurs probably wouldn't be in the race. But now it appears to kind of, I don't know whether maybe there is a move that's been lined up for the end of the Euros. That could be the case, but certainly Spurs are not kind of putting themselves in that race at the moment, it seems. And Gimenez as well. I guess there's loads of ways to look at it. You could look at Toney and say, yes, he hasn't had the greatest kind of end to the season after coming back. The other thing I should say about the shortlist as well, maybe this is a part of some aspect of some of the names that you're hearing or not hearing, is that Spurs are looking for their classic kind of Spurs profile of a player who is for the now but also the long term. So probably more looking towards a striker in there at the most mid-20s, maybe at the best for them, kind of that younger age range of like a 22, 23, 24-year-old type. I'm intrigued to see where they go because, again, I wouldn't say they're on that shortlist unless I could get it confirmed from a couple of sources. That's why I've said Jonathan David is one of those. Other ones I know that they've looked at over the last 12 months, but obviously are in a much bigger, higher price bracket. Luis Openda, the Belgian forward at RB Leipzig. He's only 24, 28 goals in 45 matches in the Bundesliga and Champions League. He is going to be huge money this summer. Apparently, he has a release clause for 2025, which is for 80 million euros, which is around 67.8 million pounds, because he's got 4 years left in his contract. Big deal. And apparently, if Leipzig were to even consider letting him go, it would be for way more than that, 67.8. So I don't know what you're talking about. 80 million more, I don't know for that. Which you would imagine, well, we're going to come to that. There's another scenario that we're going to talk about in a second. Another one, of course, everyone's spoken about at length is Victor Gyökeres. I think that's how I was told to pronounce it in Sweden. Gyökeres. Actually, I think that's it. Obviously, he's been a goal machine. 43 goals in 50 matches for Sporting this last season in the Portuguese league. And he, actually across all competitions, that'll be. He is very expensive as well and wanted by so many people. This is another thing that unfortunately, and I hate to kind of be realistic about stuff because we all want every player to constantly sign. And there's been a lot of times when you'll see someone on social media will say, just get them, they're the best, get the deal done. And I get it, and it's so exciting, and I would love myself to see a lot of these players come to Tottenham. But there are so many ones you see, and you just think, but why? Why would they come to Tottenham right now? And it's, look, we love Tottenham Hotspur. I wouldn't do all of this if I didn't love them. The amount of kind of time and effort I put into this club. But ultimately, you've also got to understand that where Tottenham are in their evolution right now isn't like, it's not top level attraction probably for if you're up against big elite clubs right now. Sometimes they'll win them out, like Dragusin, they got to him ahead of Bayern, Bergvall ahead of Barcelona, and so you've got to sell yourself in a certain way. But I do think when you're talking about these top-end, massive money signings, and let's say, and I hate to use them, but the lot down the road, Arsenal, if Arsenal are going in for a player, and so are Spurs, and Arsenal are giving Champions League football on the table as well, and potentially going for the league, trying to go for the title, which Spurs, Postecoglou says they're aiming for as well. It's very difficult. And I know it's defeatist sounding, and I know some people will even claim that's unambitious, but ultimately it's reality. If a Man City come in for a player, then they're going to sign them ahead of pretty much everyone else in the league, let's put it that way, or a Liverpool. So so there's a lot of players out there who, if they became available on the market, or even someone got a sniff that they were available at a certain price, bang, everyone would come out. And I wonder if Gimenez is one of these players. But apparently Sporting have put an £85.8 million price tag on him. So not at the cheap end of the range. He, if you weren't aware, came through the Brommapojkarna Academy in Stockholm, edge of Stockholm, with Dejan Kulusevski and Lucas Bergvall. So there is a little link there. Another one that Spurs have looked at over the years, and again, I'm not saying these are on the shortlist, I'm just saying these are players that I haven't been able to get any extra confirmation on, or get anything more than the fact that Spurs have looked at them. Dominic Solanke, Spurs have been linked with him for years. He is 26 now, so he's kind of at the upper end of that mid-20s we're talking about. There's some suggestions that he's got a £65 million release clause, but only for certain clubs. I don't know whether that's involved certain amounts of European football or anything. A lot of people are quite down on Solanke. I think he'd be brilliant at Spurs. I do. I mean, he scored 21 goals last season at Bournemouth. But yeah, 3 years left in his contract. Big contract. Again, another one I think a fair few will go after because he's homegrown too. It depends how far you want to go back on these things. Like Spurs, a few years back, were looking at Dusan Vlahovic when he was at Fiorentina before he went to Juventus. Practically loved him. He's still only 24, which is mad. Would I say that it's like Spurs are going to sign him this summer? You'd argue probably not. Again, it would be leaving Juventus. Again, big money, and I would imagine probably not. But actually, I can talk about the other scenario as well. Because the other scenario is Spurs are planning for two different scenarios this summer. One is to sign a player who is competition and another option alongside Richarlison, and I guess Son as well. I do think, as I've said before, that Sonny will go back to more his wing role next season. That's kind of the idea. But will be used centrally in some games, especially when they want to use a pair maybe through the middle. So one scenario is, you bring in a striker, they play either alongside Richarlison sometimes, but mainly in a kind of competing role for him. We're not going to say backup, we're not going to say rotation, we're going to say competing to get in that team. That's one. The other option is that Richarlison heads off. So Richarlison is very publicly has come out and said, I want to stay. I'm not going anywhere. He's kind of not linked to Saudi pro clubs, as there have been a few. I think he even didn't he do like a post that was a little kind of a jokey hint? Maybe, I can't remember now. They all blend into one, all this Instagram stuff that the players do. But the thing with Richarlison, I like Richarlison. I think he's had some really good moments during last season. 12 goals, 31 matches. And I think whenever he's been fit and really sharp, he's actually been quite impressive, and you can see how he works within the Postecoglou system. The problem is, very much in what I've just said, when fit. That's the issue. Because this is what I understand has given Spurs a little bit of pause, that if a big offer did come in from a Saudi Pro League team, they would think, well, we've got to look at that. Because Richarlison has missed 20 matches across the last 2 seasons through injury, and he's also had another load of games where he hasn't been fit enough to be properly used. He's been on the bench where he's either not been available to play, really, but he's been on there in case of an utter emergency, or he's only been able to come on for 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes at a push. So I don't even know what the total of games that would be. Maybe you're looking at 25, 30 if you're going to do it that way. So for a £60 million player who, as of yet, has not delivered on that £60 million, you can kind of understand why, if a big bid were to come in, they would maybe think, eh. And so the reason I mentioned these kind of more higher price strikers is, I guess, in that scenario, if you've got only, you are looking there for, I guess, your one souls, you probably, I don't know, would you buy 2 in that scenario? I guess you'd have to, because you'd be in the same situation or not. Or whether you go all out for a big, huge star name, big money, and then have Sonny as the back. I don't know. It would be Spurs luck that they'd sign someone like that and they get injured in the first week anyway. But yeah, just trying to kind of explain there the different scenarios. And like I say, we'll see whether some of those others move towards that shortlist, or they already are on the shortlist, because like I say, the shortlist can contain those who maybe are not as attainable as others on the list. But definitely Jonathan David is on there. And yeah, it's interesting. I've seen a few people kind of not as kind of enthused about him, let's put it that way, since I put out the story today. I've always thought he was quite a good striker, and it's one of those where you'll get someone that will say you have to sign Gimenez because he's scored 20 plus goals in the Eredivisie, and then on the other hand they'll tell you that you can't get Jonathan Davies, who scored 20 plus in League 1. And it's a bit like, or then they'll say Gimenez has scored the ridiculous amount of goals, 40 plus, in the Portuguese league. It's like, oh, where do you rank, I guess, kind of the different leagues? And there are so many players that will just go to another league and they'll just be able to adapt whatever. But we've also seen players come from all 3 of those leagues and struggle in the Premier League, because it is a different beast of a league. But yeah, we'll see more names come out. I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to kind of try and double source a few other names that I've heard in bits and pieces. But yeah, don't be surprised if we get an absolutely new name that we haven't heard come out in the next week or so, linked with the striker role. But certainly Jonathan David is one of those. Yeah, and like I said earlier, Euros and Copa America are holding up deals across the transfer market, really, because there is such a dependency on, I guess, starting a ball rolling, the kind of roundabout that happens when one moves, it becomes a gap, money freed up, loads of different things as well. But they are attempting, from what I understand, still to try and get a deal or 2 done before the players return for pre-season training, which is looking like July the 6th. That's what I've been told by a couple of people. That will be a different date for certain players. Depends when your last international game was and things like that. But certainly from July the 6th, which I think is a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, they'll start coming back from that point on. Coaches will normally be in 3 to 4, 5 days before that. So you would think that we'll have a decision, hopefully, on a new assistant manager by then. Assistant head coach for him after Chris Davies going to Birmingham. Although I think I might have said this in a previous video, I suppose there's slightly less pressure on getting that person in straight away, because you've got experience in the likes of, excuse me, Matt Wells and Ryan Mason, who would probably know very well how to start putting on the pre-season sessions with Postecoglou. But we'll see. Personally, I think it makes more sense to get it done before then, but we'll keep an eye on that and how it goes. It's kind of quite quiet at this point in these when it comes to the assistant head coach, which in a weird way normally means something is happening. When there's kind of nothing being thrown about, and there hasn't even been linked with names, has there? I've been told that Ryan Mason and Matty Wells in particular, with his experience as being an assistant head coach, are strong candidates, But that's not to say they'll end up being the candidate that gets the job, because he may well, Postecoglou, decide on someone from the outside with a bit more, I suppose, experience. So, yeah, we shall see. We shall see on that respect. But, yeah, in terms of Euros and Copa America, obviously, kind of the big one is probably Eberechi Eze, as I mentioned earlier. He's definitely one of Spurs' priority targets they'd love to bring in this summer. Postecoglou's a big admirer of his. He would definitely be a big money signing. We talk about those big kind of money signings, and he would certainly be the one that you'd think Spurs are kind of looking to put their, or at least try to put their eggs in the basket for. And again, you're quite right. I can hear people saying, why does it have to be only one? But certainly he would be so exciting if Spurs could get that done. You know, they love him at Spurs, and he is, as I've said before, represented by Base, the agency, who also represent Postecoglou, Son, Maddison, Porro, Sarr, more staff at the club. I've got a funny feeling even Scott Munn. I haven't had that. I shouldn't even probably say that because I haven't even had that backed up, so it might not be the case. But there's definitely staff members within the club that are Base represented. It's interesting because, you know, whether you even, I suppose maybe there's a link there, I don't know, with is it Frank Trimboli, who is one of Postecoglou's long-term kind of friends and confidants, that he's Australian. Maybe there's a Scott Munn connection there as well. Again, he that was what I was told, whether it's true or not, but there certainly are staff members that are Base connected, and so is Eze. So yeah, I guess that helps in terms of talks, and certainly talks between the player and facilitating all of that. And of course, from the Palace end, if you're Palace, you don't want to lose Elise, who looks like he's going to Bayern, and Eze, but there seems to be talk that there is some kind of release clause, however complicated, that is there for Eze as well. And yeah, ultimately, if there is one, then it's up to Spurs to try to free him from that. And it seems like there would be big money needing to be spent. Club transfer record breaking, I would imagine, to get that done. So, yeah, again, Euro's involvement is going to slow down his side of things as well. And there probably is going to be competition in that. You know, it's been talked about Arsenal maybe coming in for him as well, and other clubs looking at him, maybe even Chelsea after not getting Elise. Kind of slightly different players, of course. But, yeah, a lot depends on the groundwork Spurs, I suppose, will have done with his representatives and then the player, and what others can offer him as well. As I said earlier, you never know if someone comes in that can offer him that little bit more. And Postecoglou is very big on the player has to be desperate to come to Tottenham. That's a big thing to him. They really have to. God, this camera definitely really shows up the bright lighting that I've got to try and light myself up a bit, because it was quite dingy, the old video, so I bought this light, and it's definitely making my eyes like, woo, I look crazy. Enough about that. It's very well. I just look like an alien. So I may have to end up going back to a lower form for people not to get scared. It kind of looks like I'm wearing some kind of like mascara or something as well. There you go. Very interesting. Yeah, so we'll see with Eze, but certainly is one that Spurs would love to get done, and hopefully they can. I was trying to think where they would play him, because he's not a natural fit for the Postecoglou system, in that he's not probably an exact number 8, and he's not an exact stay high up the pitch and wide winger. You know, he's kind of more of this number 10 role, isn't he, that he plays for Palace. But I'd imagine he's talented enough to definitely fit those two different roles, I think, or the system tweaks slightly so that he would be in a more advanced role, which Maddison at times does play as a number 10 more than a number 8. But yeah, he would be fantastic. He's a very exciting player. He really is. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. The only transfer dealings really I was thinking about that we've had, obviously Spurs brought Timo Werner in, got his loan deal extended. There's been other bits and pieces, some free transfers between like Adebayo and Lloyd Kelly, obviously going to their respective clubs. Adebayo at Chelsea, Kelly at Newcastle. And then we've had this weird little kind of merry-go-round between like Villa, Everton, Chelsea, Newcastle getting involved as well. All the clubs that have got these kind of profit and sustainability rules issues have all been kind of like holding hands and skipping along and saying, "Oh, give me this, I'll give you that. Oh, wonderful." Because essentially they appear to have found this loophole within the rules that kind of, it's all to do with homegrown players, pure profit, all of this sort of stuff. And then when you sign a player, you can stretch it over. Is it amortization? I can't remember what the phrase is now. Where you stretch it out over a long contract. So it doesn't balance up as spent. And Villa obviously have also, Douglas Luiz going to Juventus too. So yeah, it's... I don't know. A lot of people said, like, don't you feel it makes a mockery of it all? And I guess one person who would probably be annoyed would be Daniel Levy, because obviously he's kind of put a lot of stock into this whole system for regulating and allowing Spurs to properly compete, rather than just spending on whacking great amounts of money. But I don't know. I kind of feel like I can't get too angry about it, because if there's a loophole in the system and they have found a perfectly fine way of doing it, there's some talk about the values of the players, and that is maybe where an issue lies. But ultimately, if the hole is there in the rules and it hasn't been closed, I guess it's down to them to do what they got to do to kind of continue and not get docked points and things like that. Whether the loophole closes next season, we'll see. But certainly for now, it's probably going to put a little bit less pressure on some of those clubs come June 30th, when their books have to all be done by. But I still think we're going to see a little bit of a flurry in, what, week 24? Still got just under a week in the next 6 days. I still think some of those clubs might look to... So I don't think Forest have got involved with it, have they? Unless I've missed one or two. Forest don't seem to have been involved in all of that thus far. So... yeah, one to keep an eye on, and whether anyone needs to go. Obviously, we know Chelsea and Conor Gallagher. I just kind of feel with Conor Gallagher, this is purely opinion, nothing more. There's no need for aggregators to take... Oh, the aggregators killed me on some of the stuff today. It was like I did this big, long article, kind of with some real kind of definite stuff. And then I mentioned some of those strikers that I said before, that definitely have players that they've looked at over the last year or so. And it was very much like way down the article. And of course, aggregators take little bits out and they tweet them out. And people that read those tweets get very angry because they think I've written an article about what that tweet is about. And it couldn't be further from the case. It's not the angle of an article. It's nothing to do with it. It's right down there, just me saying, oh yeah, I guess in previous years they've looked at this player. And that's it. So yeah, I would say that the majority of people that kind of moan at me or about me, a lot of it comes from tweets that kind of don't represent what the article is. But that's life. That's life. I definitely have come to accept it, even if I'll have the odd little moan about it. It's the way the whole game works nowadays, I suppose. So, what else we had? We've had the matchday ticket prices come out, which have gone up again, second year in a row. The matchday prices, season tickets were frozen last year, weren't they? And then obviously had this whacking 6% increase on them this time around. And the matchday ticket prices have come out for the second year in a row with an increase. And Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust have come out with a statement saying they're extremely disappointed with it. Of course, you will remember the season tickets, I think it was 6% increase across the board. And also that just not very well received, understandably, decision to start phasing out and reducing the senior concessions on the season ticket prices as well, with the discount reduced current holders, and then in the future new people will not be able to apply for the senior concessions in the season tickets. So Spurs have announced their matchday tickets. In their announcement, they said earlier this month the club met with the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust to discuss the pricing models being considered. For the 24-25 season, there will be an increase on match ticket prices to allow for inflation, £6 on a Category A ticket, £1 on Category B and C tickets. So yeah, it's not a lot when you look at it in one go, but of course, it's more looking at it, the total price they already are, and I guess over a season as well if you're looking to go to more games. So I kind of looked at the prices. The increase means on Category A matches, which are Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Man United and Newcastle, they will now cost between £71 for adults and £109 for adults. Senior concession tickets and junior ones are both range between £35.50 to £44.50, and the young adults are from £53.50 to £67. Category B games, which are Villa, Brentford, Brighton, Palace, Everton, Fulham and Forest, and West Ham and Wolves, they will cost between £49 and £96 for adult tickets. Senior and junior concessions, £24.50 to £32.50, and young adults from £24.50 to £32.50. Last remaining category, Category C, which is Bournemouth, Ipswich, Leicester and Southampton. Adult prices are £38 to £81. Senior and juniors, £19 to £27.50. And I keep saying young adults. Young adults are £28.50 to £41.50. So, after all of that, which has made my mouth go really dry for some reason, going through all those numbers. So the Trust very much hit back at the idea that they'd been fully consulted with over it. And they claim they just had one meeting a fortnight before the announcement. So their statement, which I'm going to read out, is: "We're extremely disappointed with the club's decision to increase matchday ticket prices for the second consecutive year. This follows the club's announcement earlier this year that having seen season ticket increases by 6%, and of course the disgraceful changes to senior concession season tickets. Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust official board members met with the club on June the 4th and once again argued that during the cost of living crisis, ticket prices should not be increased. We asked the club to remove booking fees and to revert to 5 Category A games, 9 Category B and 5 Category C, rather than the 694 they have pushed ahead with. This is not structured dialogue or consultation, and we have said as much to the club. We pushed for stretch pricing and were able to restrict the increases in Category B and C games to £1, but we still believe the increase in Category A games is indefensible and unnecessary. So B and C would have been more than £1 extra. The cumulative effect of the increases is an overall increase higher than the rate of inflation, and the club's Fans Advisory Board also expressed its opposition to the proposed increase and its disappointment at the club's refusal to agree to a 5-9-5 split on match categorisation and to remove booking fees. A television deal worth £6.7 billion is in place for 4 seasons from 25-26, shining a light on the record levels of income being generated by Premier League clubs. We urge both the Premier League and the incoming independent regulator to take account and to put in place regulations to prevent clubs exploiting loyalty. The Trust will continue to work with the Football Supporters Association, fellow supporters trusts and politicians to push hard for such regulation. It's become increasingly apparent that such changes will not come from within most Premier League club boardrooms." Whew, that was a lot to get through. An increase is never great. Of course it's not. And you can point to all of the money that's coming in. I'm sure the club will point to inflation, they'll point to rising costs, they'll point to needing money for transfers, etc. But you do always have to wonder whether the kind of amount that this increase gathers for them, is it really enough to warrant just upsetting people? But then there's also the other aspect, I guess, of supply and demand. And as people always say, if you don't want it to happen, kind of don't go and kind of protest against it. But that stadium is full every single week. It's a difficult one, but ultimately no increase is a good thing really for fans, let's be honest. Of course it's not going to be. What else we had? We've had a further Rodrigo Bentancur apology, as well as the news that the FA are continuing to investigate. I've spoken to the FA this week to kind of see what the latest is on that, and they said they're still investigating whether there's a charge to be answered, and if so, a potential ban would come along with that as well. I'm not going to go into my views again on all of this. I made it very clear in the last video, as you will have heard. I know that people have differing views on it, but mine are also there, very clear and quite strong on it. And I don't, not moving from that whatsoever. But I am going to state the facts here that are Bentancur's latest apology, which he did as a permanent Instagram post rather than a temporary story one, which his last one was. He said, "I would like to communicate to all fans and everyone who follows us that after my interview where I referred to Son and no one else, I've spoken to him and logically, given our deep friendship, he understands it was only an unfortunate misunderstanding. All has been clarified and solved with my friend. If someone felt offended because of my words through this media tool, I would like to offer my sincere apologies. But I would also like you to know that never I referred to anyone else. only to Son, and for that reason I have never had the intention to offend directly or indirectly anyone. A big hug and all my respect to everyone. Yeah, I mean, very quickly, I kind of feel like he's slightly just not or totally not got the idea that he's actually, however indirectly he feels it was, targeted a lot more people than just Son. And I guess, look, that will be now decided by kind of more important people than myself, certainly. We'll have to see what the FA decide, because there is a kind of a precedent there with different types of cases and circumstances, different things said. Don't forget Dele Alli got banned, didn't he, over a video that was meant to be kind of a private group thing that went out into the public. Not that that makes any difference whether it's public or private. Again, must stress, different things said, different circumstances, all of that. But they decided that in that aspect, Dele deserved a 1-game ban. I think it was a fine as well too. So yeah, there is kind of various different incidents and other ones as well at various other clubs that they can look into and decide whether it fits into their criteria or not. And then Spurs are also dealing with it internally, and I guess a certain amount of what they can do will have to be governed by the FA, because they could, I don't know, give him a huge fine of some kind. But then technically the FA could say there's nothing to answer for here, which I guess weakens their case, and he could appeal it. I suppose that's probably the way that you'd have to look at it. I should also stress, actually, there's been a few other little statements since that video, since my last video came out. We've had Kick It Out, Son, and the club have all said stuff. Just apologies if you've already heard these or not, but I think for balance I need to say each of these. They're not really long statements or anything. Just quickly, Kick It Out, which is the organisation which seeks to end racism and discrimination in sport, if you're not aware who they are. They said towards the end of last week, I think it was Thursday, that they had received a significant number of reports about Rodrigo Bentancur's comments regarding his Tottenham teammate Son Heung-min. These reports have already been sent to the club and relevant authorities. We recognise Bentancur has acknowledged the offence caused. However, it highlights a wider issue that heavily affects East Asian and wider communities. We'll be seeking to address these broader issues in the coming season. Sonny, he did a statement in an Instagram story post on the same day. No, sorry, Kick It Out was Wednesday. This was Thursday. Sonny said, I've spoken with Lolo. He made a mistake. He knows this and has apologised. Lolo would not mean to ever intentionally say something offensive. We are brothers and nothing has changed at all. We're past this. We're united and we'll be back together in pre-season to fight for our clubs as one Sonny. So between the players, certainly all seems fine. Spurs also released a statement the same day as Sonny, following a comment from Rodrigo Bentancur in an interview video clip and the player's subsequent public apology. The club has been providing assistance in ensuring a positive outcome on the matter. This will include further education for all players in line with our diversity, equality and inclusion objectives. We fully support that our captain Sonny feels that he can draw a line on the incident and that the team can focus on the new season ahead. We're extremely proud of our diverse global fan base and playing squads. Discrimination of any kind has no place at our club, within our game, or within wider society. So there you go. I feel like I've done a lot of reading today, and I'm sorry if it's very much been story time with Alistair. But yeah, I just feel, for the sake of balance, and by all means, I guess, to anything I said last week as well, that's everything that's out there. I still stand by my views on it. I don't think they've changed since anything else has come out. But hopefully between the two players has been put to bed, and now it's a case of, I guess, what the FA decide, and also how it affected far more people as well, in who were, as they said, a significant number of reports Kick It Out had as well. So I think it's quite easy maybe for other people not affected to brush it under the carpet in a way, but I guess we'll see what the authorities decide. So that's on that. A nice story was Sonny, which came out in a week, and I loved it. The Korean FA put out this YouTube video about this effect that Sonny has had, and it's really remarkable. It's heartwarming. I had to watch it with kind of auto-generated captions, so the English may not have been the greatest translation of it all, but you could still tell what a lovely kind of little impact he's had on this 83-year-old lady from Korea, South Korea, called Yong. Oh, so sorry to her about the pronunciation here. Yong Gyum-sun, I'm going to go for. It could be the wrong, but she's a lady who's 83, suffering from dementia. She's been dealing with this disease in recent years, and obviously, as someone that's had family members who have previously had dementia, my dad did, and current family members also have it as well. I know it's an absolute rubbish thing. It robs you of so much dignity and memories and everything, and just the ability to kind of just know people in your life and talk to them. One of the lovely things for Jeong, I'm going to call her, is that one person she always recognizes is Sonny. She's a real devout fan, watches every match he's in, and it kind of went viral, I think, in South Korea. Clips of her watching him playing for Spurs or South Korea, cheering him on, and the delight on her face every time she would see Sonny come on the screen. And yeah, Sonny was shown these videos of her watching in her Spurs shirt. She's got loads of different Spurs shirts as well, not just like the home one, like properly. I think she also had it was a few away ones and third shirts from recent seasons as well, like proper like Sonny fan and a Spurs fan as well as a result of that. And so Sonny was shown that, and he kind of promised he was going to come and meet her. And there's this lovely video. I really recommend you watch it. It's on the South Korean FA YouTube channel of Sonny coming to meet her, and it's just beautiful. The moment she sees him walk in the door, it's ahead of one of their World Cup qualifying games. I think it was the win against China. She just lights up. It's beautiful. And like I say, if any of you are like me and you've had people in your life that have had dementia, that moment when there's a little flicker of recognition and the joy it brings to them, it's like 100 times that for the person that's kind of been looking after or is affected by it as a family member. And it's just lovely. And her son's kind of always with her. And it just must be just amazing. And Sonny is so good with her. He's so patient. And that's the key with dementia. It's so easy to get kind of frustrated when you're hearing kind of repeated things over and over again, or when they don't recognize certain aspects, or they just don't do stuff sometimes that would be normally natural to them. Sonny is so good. You can see she kind of clutches his hand. She doesn't want to let it go. There's one point he wants to go, and she's kind of saying, "Stay a little bit longer." And it's lovely. And he kneels down at eye level with her, and the whole time to make sure he's talking straight into her eyes. He brings her a shirt that's signed. And asked her to wear it the next day she was going to come to the game as well. So, it's beautiful. Honestly, it's really, really nice. It was a lovely video, and I do recommend if you can watch it, please do. You know, we talk about all the kind of rubbish stuff in football sometimes and life, and obviously we just spoke about a kind of an incident that's not been the greatest around Sonny, but this very much is something that's lovely. So it is absolutely lovely to watch. So yeah, please do. Other little bits and pieces to kind of mop up. Gianni Vio has been in the news again. We spoke about him before, haven't we? My frequent attempts to kind of explain to people that no, he just does attacking set pieces when people were moaning about the defensive ones. So he has popped up again because he's currently helping. I did not even know this had happened, to be fair. The USA at the Copa America. I think he's working with Watford and the USA because he's freelance. I've said this before. He kind of does bits and pieces. And so Christian Pulisic scored this lovely goal 3 minutes into their game against Bolivia on Sunday. And it's a short corner, and he goes to the edge of the box and just curls this beauty into the top right corner. Celebrates the goal by running to the bench, and he's looking into the stands where VO is, and he does this like double-fingered kind of point at him. And it's just, it's really cool because we kind of haven't really heard too much about him other than us all, or certainly Spurs fans going, oh, where is he? Why is he not there? Kind of thing. And he's having this massive moment at the Copa America. So he's 71 years old now, Gianni Vio. You might remember he was a freelance coach for one season under Antonio Conte. He used to be a banker. He's got 20 years experience of kind of designing set pieces, like 5,000, more than 5,000, I think it is, of them. And he's helped various clubs. He helped Roberto Mancini's Italian side at the Euros. They won in 2021. He was kind of part of that and their set piece goals. And Pulisic said after the game, shout out to Gianni on that one, who had a really nice play drawn up We had the idea if they only brought one person out to defend the corner taker, we'd take that 2-on-1. Basically, the idea was just to shoot at the back post and things can happen. And sure enough, it went in. So yeah, obviously there was a lot of talk about VO and whether Spurs should have kept him and everything. So just for the stats, in case you've forgotten, in the 2022-23 season, VO with Spurs scored 16 set-piece goals while he was there, which was the joint second most in the Premier League. Technically a league-leading 5.9% of their goals came from set-pieces. Last season, obviously very different style of football, which they scored more goals from overall. But had Ryan Mason doing the set pieces, attacking ones, they scored 11. So they had 5 fewer in that system. Although I still think a lot of it was the rubbish delivery towards the end of the season. Some of the balls in from Porro and Maddison were not good. But ultimately, still, it's fewer goals than they scored under VO. So if you're wondering, like, why did Postecoglou not bring him back? Here's the little quote from the time. He said, I've never had a specific set-piece coach. I've always had someone who's responsible for that. I always think it's better if that's somebody who's part of the coaching staff, because then that's an extension of how we play our football. I don't separate set-pieces from everything else we do. In terms of the team we want it to be, it all hopefully links together. Here we've split the roles between Millet and Ryan in terms of defensive and attacking set-pieces, and they've put a lot of work into it with the analysis stuff. I'm sure every club does. Some have gone down the specialised route, which I understand. It's not how I work. I always try to create a collective environment for everything we do so that nothing is separated. I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing in specialists for one particular area, just for the way I work more than anything else. And he actually also went into to kind of speak about the delivery and how that was a big thing and how it wasn't good enough towards the end of the season. That was March, though, he was speaking about that. So it kind of only got worse for me from that respect. So, yeah, Gianni VO doing well. Great for him in the Championship with Watford. And although I don't know next season, who knows? As I say, he's freelance. So even last summer at the club, nobody knew whether he was going to stick around because he was the only guy that remained from the Italian group after Stellini eventually went with the remainder of Conte's backroom staff. VO stayed and helped out Ryan Mason for the remainder of the season as well. So he is very much his own man. What else did I do this week? Oh yeah, after saying in the last video about Archie Gray and Spurs having a strong interest in the Leeds 18-year-old, very talented lad who can play in midfield or right back, I asked Beren Cross, who covers Leeds week in, week out for Leeds Live, about the situation with Archie Gray this summer and whether there was any chance of someone prizing him away. I wanted to give you kind of from the Leeds side of things. He said, Archie Gray is one of the other players to come out last season with a high profile. The 18-year-old was named Championship Young Player of the Season, and you can see the trend. The difference with Gray is his age and importance. I think he was also talking about Somerville as well, if I remember correctly, but I took out the Gray bit because Somerville's been connected with loads of clubs. He said, the difference with Gray is his age and importance to the fan base. His name is iconic in Leeds circles as the grandson of Frank and great-nephew of Eddie, and as a product of the academy, he bleeds white. While supporters understand money needs to be raised this summer, they would rather sell every player in the squad before parting with Gray. While Somerville, Sorencio, isn't it? Somerville's aspirations and trajectory are accepted, at 18, there is a belief Gray can have more years with his boyhood club to develop before flying the nest. There's no hiding the fact that Gray can become a generational England talent. Gareth Southgate has already started talking about him after one full season of senior football. Any fee raised for him this summer could feasibly be doubled in 2 more years if Leeds can just hold on. Marath and the board know they will face an almighty backlash if Gray is sold this summer. So yeah, that was kind of what I mentioned in the last one. It was like, if I'm Leeds, it's probably not the year to cash in unless they are so desperate for that money. That's another thing. So yeah, it's kind of. I mean, we talk about the right back. I guess Emerson Royale. We're still waiting to see exactly what happens with him and AC Milan mainly being the ones that have shown a lot of interest. I saw before I came on here there was some quotes that have kind of been attributed to him about being happy that Milan linked with him. A couple of days ago was the last time I really checked up on Emerson, and at that point, while there'd been lots of talk about AC Milan, from what I understood, negotiations had been taking place between representatives rather than the two clubs at that point, because there's talk about £21 million being the figure that Spurs wanted. But yeah, at that point, like I say, I haven't heard anything to suggest differently since. But if I do, I'll put out an update on actual talks between Spurs and Milan over the player. I think Flamengo were also interested in him, although I think that was seen as being a little bit more tricky to do at this point in his career. I think Emerson maybe has spoken about that himself publicly, and the Saudi Pro League clubs as well have also been linked with him. So yeah, I mean, he's one of those where I suppose that starts a little bit of a ball rolling in terms of you would then definitely need to head out and get yourselves, as a club, another right back, Spurs. So there you go. Right. I think that's probably it for now. Like I say, these transfer ones, they can be spaced out. There can be suddenly I might have to do one again tomorrow night. I might have to do one in a couple of days' time because everything moves so quickly. And all of these players that I've said, they're at a certain stage, like with Jonathan David, there's been no kind of bid yet. But of course, that's probably more so because he's at the Copa America. Or they're just maybe trying to see where the land lies with the fee. Or maybe it could be that there's another person above him in the shortlist that they would prefer to get first. So, yeah, we'll see how it all works out and how it all shakes up. That is the transfer window. But hopefully we packed a load in there. Loads of very different topics. We went from kit to ticket prices to transfers to Sonny and various good things and bad things around him. We spoke about Gianni Vio. Yeah, loads of it. But like I said at the top of this, honestly, I'm so grateful to people who watch this. It's fantastic. I know it's not something that really should work in today's world. It is a video podcast. That's the way I always see it rather than anything else. It is not a snappy short bites for TikTok type stuff. It's not that. It is very much just me chatting away to a camera for an hour or so about everything I know, everything I want to discuss, any opinions I've got as well. Even the thumbnails, you see all these people like shot like, like thumbnails. They're all kind of very carefully edited and cropped. It's just literally a screenshot of part of the video that goes up. I've seen other people that like use what I say, and there's actually kind of all these fancy Photoshop edited images of me and other people's YouTube videos, which is honestly, I hadn't even noticed those, and someone pointed them out a couple of weeks ago. I was just like, what? I should not merit that ever. But I really do appreciate, though, that this kind of seems to have found an audience. It's lovely, an audience that has grown over the years as well. Because, like I say, it's a strange format to do it on. I don't do them as audio podcasts because I already have a podcast that I do with Guesty, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham. So I don't want to interfere or compete with my own work podcast. This is very much, these videos are just, I do them in my spare time, often just to get things off my chest, I suppose. So this is why it's very much always going to be a visual thing. Apologies for that because you've got to see this. But yeah, I know it makes it a little bit more tricky to listen to them, especially if you're on the go. But that's why I just so amazingly appreciative that people watch them. It's fantastic. So yeah, gonna head off now, watch some Euros football, and I shall be back probably sooner than I would anticipate, because I'm sure something will happen in the next couple of days. I've just got a feeling something will start happening, but I've probably said that in previous videos. But it just makes sense, especially if you want to get something done before the players return to pre-season training in what is 2 weeks, isn't it? Yes, just under 2 weeks now. So there you go. Right, time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.